well.
Hello and welcome. It's day 3 of Tirreno Adriatico 2015, the 50th edition of the Race of Two Seas, the traditional curtain raiser to the Italian stage race season. We've got some of the best Grand Tour riders in the world cycling in action this week as the riders race from the Mediterranean to the Adriatic via some of the most extraordinary and testing countryside topography that Italy has to offer. Greg Van Avermaet is in the race lead as the race heads into the first of 2 mountain stages that are likely to decide the destination of this year's Tirreno title. Today's fair is the longest stage of the race, 226 kilometres in total. Let's get a look at yesterday's stage. BMC absolutely bossing the peloton on the way into the final kilometre. Perfect positioning. Luca Paolini tried to kick it off for Katusha, but he hit a wall. That was the finishing climb, and BMC were able to get themselves organised. And Greg Van Avermaet, so often the bridesmaid, was able to convert his sensational form into a really impressive World Tour victory. So Greg Van Avermaet it was that led them up the finishing hill and managed to just about hold off a late surge from Peter Sagan, coming with a late run in the white jersey of the leader of the young rider classification. Sagan denied by the red jersey of the Belgian Greg Van Avermaet, who took the stage victory and with it the overall race lead. And now he has transferred his red jersey into a blue jersey of overall race leader. Great win for Van Avermaet. He says that he is definitely up for this one again today as well. It's a hilly one, and Van Avermaet, big Belgian that he is capable of getting over the hills better than most, and is very, very impressive in sprinting from a small group as well. One of the outside bets, I think, for honours in Milan-San Remo next week, and he's honing his form very nicely indeed. Today's stage finishes in the beautiful town of Castelraimondo. First settled, well, many moons ago, but built up properly in the 14th century, and pretty much all of it was destroyed over the years. Various different assaults, not least in the 20th century. That meant they've completely rebuilt the finishing town of Castelraimondo, and 4 ascents today. So that's the finishing town, Castelraimondo. We're looking forward to 4 ascents in total, and the stage finishes with 2 ascents of the challenging Crispiero climb, which finishes with just 6 kilometres to go. And don't forget, we have Milan-San Remo here on Eurosport next week. Moving to Sunday these days, and many of the riders in today's peloton are using Tirreno Adriatico as their final tune-up for the first of the big classics of the season. First of the monuments. Alexander Kristoff's been in fine form of late. So too is Mark Cavendish, and he'll have another opportunity to really see what sort of legs he's got in Monday's stage, which is the next opportunity for the sprinters. Today, all about the mountain goats and those that can get over the climbs and maybe sprint a bit at the end. It's cold up in the mountains, I can tell you today. Down at sea level, 12 degrees centigrade. And not too much wind out there. Balmy spring conditions for the riders, but up in the hills and on those descents, well, riders with single figures fat percentages inclined to suffer a little bit, and plenty of them have been back to the cars to pick up gilets, arm warmers, gloves, etc. This is the parcours of today's route. 4 climbs, as I said. The first of those coming quite early on, the Scopatoni, and then the first of what we call superior climbs, the serious hills, has, well, the riders are already on that ascent at the moment, the Poggio San Romualdo. Make their way to Castelraimondo, and then they've got those 2 climbs of the Crispiero on that finishing circuit. Twice up the Crispiero, it's 4.2 kilometers in length, average of over 7%, and gets up to around about 15%. So that's a real leg breaker at the back end of fully 226 kilometers of mountain racing. So it's a long stage for the riders today, perfect for those honing their form for the longest classic of them all. But perhaps not ideal for some riders just coming into this race, and it's their first race of the season. This is the start town Indicatore, finished in Arezzo, just up the road yesterday's stage, and then they've come back down into Indicatore to kick off today's stage. Kilometers from Arezzo, and as you can see, this is the industrial heartland of Italy. And it's sign on this morning, the Colombian team, all present and correct. MTN Quebeca and Greg Van Avermaet resplendent in that blue leader's jersey. Vincenzo Nibali, all eyes will be on him to see what sort of form he's got ahead of the big mountain test tomorrow. We'll see who's up for GC today, and there'll be a further elimination tomorrow. Rigoberto Urán finished well yesterday and has put himself in prime position of the GC contenders. Alberto Contador also safely in the group, and Mark Cavendish again signing on this morning. Okay, that's the scene at the start today. We're going to get a break out of the way, and we'll be back after this.
Stage to interpret today. It's kind of a mountain stage and a breakaway stage. What's going to happen?
It's hard to say on the moment, but
so it's,
for sure it's an attractive
just
stage for everybody. Something in. It's a long stage, and with 2 hard climbs in the end, I think it will be pretty hard there to go over it for me. But I will try to survive the stage, and yeah, if I can get over the climb, I can also win the stage. So see how it goes. We try to defend the leader jersey, and yeah, another good day.
Simon Geschke, you're looking strong, and this is a race that suits you. What's going to happen today?
It will be. It is hard to predict because it will be an open final, but yeah, I expect a lot of attacks on the final last hills, and I hope to be in there after the second time of the last hill, and yeah, I hope to sprint for the victory today.
You feeling strong? You up there, in for a fight?
We will see. It's too early now. I mean, we have 10 o'clock in the morning, and yesterday was, even it didn't look as a profile hard, but it was a tough and a rough stage. So we will see how the peloton reacts at the first few kilometers, but I think there will be some fireworks today for sure.
Fireworks for sure from Fabian Cancellara. Well, he isn't really expecting, I think, to challenge in the next couple of days. He might just have the legs to get over those 2 finishing climbs today. We'll see. Greg Van Avermaet is looking forward to that, though, in the blue jersey of overall race leader. Alongside him, the mountains leader Danilo Wiss of the BMC squad. He's been in that jersey for a couple of days. Can he hang on to it? Because this is the first big test. 15 points on offer for the second climb of the day, to go with the 5 points at the top of each of the other 3 hills. And no surprise, flag comes in, and immediately riders were trying to get up the road and see what they could do about getting into a move that would stick. It took quite a while for the move of the day really to establish itself. Permin Lang of EM on the inside there, just trying an early move with Yannick Martinez of Europcar. And then Matt Heyman and Luke Durbridge decided to clip away. Dragging across to Martinez. What beautiful conditions. And great to see the crowds out appreciating these World Tour riders early in the season. And clearly some good form. No surprise, some good form coming from the Aussies. So many of them, of course, try and get themselves up in a big way for the Tour Down Under. And more skirmishing than we've seen of late in the attempt to get into a move. This is Perazzi, I think, of Bardiani. That's clipped off. Matthias Braindle, of course, is well up on the overall, and might fancy his chances of getting into an early move that would prevent him from losing so much time late on. Ian Stannard as well, former British road race champion, a man who's on fine form. And here we have it. The first ascent of the day, I can tell you, was taken by Perazzi, but those are pictures from the second ascent. The first superior climb of this race. 15 points on offer for Matt Hayman as he crests the rise at the top of the Poggio San Romualdo. 9.9 kilometers, average of 6.7%, so it was a real test for the riders. And that's Carlos Quintero, who's up in the mountains competition and paired the advantage of Danilo Wiss to 2 points approaching that climb, and I think those points are likely to have meant that Carlos Quintero has taken over the lead of the mountains competition. We'll wait for full confirmation of that. But those are the scenes at the finish line as we await the appearance of the riders. Quite a while from now, they'll have one side of the finish line before they sprint for good. There we have pictures of the riders in one long snaking line as they chase down these riders up front. Luke Durbridge and Matthew Hayman from the same team, two Aussies, Orica Greenedge, and they've been toiling out there for quite a while. Maximum advantage of over 7 minutes, and we'll look to see what it's sitting at right now. But just under 60 kilometers remaining in the stage. These two big, strong Aussies are doing a fantastic job, it has to be said. Alongside me is Matt Stevens. Don't forget, we're on Twitter, hashtag Home of Cycling, at Real Stevens for the man alongside. It's at DQ Sport for myself if you want to get involved today. And Matt, this is a delightful prospect today. 5:44 these two guys still have out front. There's a couple of riders in between and lots of action already, and it's a very different character of a stage to those that we've had already.
Yeah, completely different to the last couple of stages, although yesterday's finale, the finish circuit was quite tough and suited the punchier riders. Again, this is, as we see, a crash here. One of the Bardiani riders coming down on a bend. As you touched upon earlier, they've got great conditions here. Luckily, it's very, very dry, but sometimes if you just get a corner wrong or you touch wheels, like a bit of a lack of concentration, you can come down. Looks like Contador there, maybe clipped by the Bardiani rider. It's, looks like he's changing bikes. That's not what he's going to want to happen, but he'll be okay. Still a long way to go. Looks he's definitely getting a spare bike there. Another one of his Alberto Contador 15 limited edition Specialized. He's straight on, still well within the confines of the convoy. Cool, calm and collected, and he's on his way again. But as you say, Declan, a very, very different stage today. Very, very hilly, an extremely difficult finale. We've got two very difficult climbs, as we can see there. I think it's Durbridge is actually, looks like he's come off as well. But very unusual to see two riders, you know, of the same team, let alone the same continent away in a breakaway. But two powerhouses. You've got the vastly experienced Matt Hayman, 36 years of age now. Spent 9 years with the Rabobank team before moving across to Team Sky. And then it's Matt Hayman, actually, who's got the injuries there. All I got was a shot of the buttocks, but there's the far younger Luke Durbridge, 23 years of age. But interesting, I don't know what the tactic is here, where they're looking to try and just get the mountains points. It looks like Durbridge has also come off as well. Yeah, looks like they've both come down. That is quite interesting. No doubt we'll find out. And Durbridge does look to have his ear blooded there. But no, this is really a tough stage. 226 kilometres in length. A real sting in the tail. This is really going to test the condition of the riders ahead of tomorrow's stage, and of course Milan-San Remo in just a week's time.
Just under 6 minutes advantage for those two riders. Both of them have been on the floor at some stage today, but they're both tough men and they're back on their bikes. And we've also seen at least one other rider from Bardiani on the ground. I can tell you that the finishing descent is said to be quite technical indeed. Not just technical, but also the road surface is a little bit difficult. So as the Tinkoff Saxo squad pick up Alberto Contador and shepherd him safely back into the bunch, and no doubt straight back towards the front of it. Alberto Contador is safely in amongst the leading contenders as rider Hejadal goes back to the car. 6 minutes advantage. 56.7 kilometers remaining in this fourth stage of Tirreno Adriatico. We are going to take a short break now. Please do join us again after this. It's the fourth day of racing in Tirreno, Adriatico for 2015. We are heading from Indicatore to Castelraimondo, 226 kilometres in total, and several spikes in the profile to test the riders along the way. 4 climbs in total. I can tell you we've got a group of 2 out front, 2 Aussies, both from the same team, have an advantage of 6 minutes and 7 seconds. Luke Durbridge, the young buck with the Orica Green Edge squad, 23 years of age, is accompanied by the old master of that squad, 36 years old, Matthew Heyman. Both riders showing signs of having been on the ground. Little marks on Luke Durbridge there, on his left elbow and his right shoulder, and plenty of marks as well on Matthew Heyman's right thigh as well. So obviously they've been on the ground, so difficult day for them, but they're ploughing away. The bunch are happy to let them have their moment, and 6 minutes and 8 seconds, a very significant advantage with just 54 kilometres remaining, albeit there are 2 climbs at the back end of this stage that are set to, well, they'll set the tone of today's activities. But Greg Van Avermaet, very much a classics man. He's able to get up the small bergs, but he's also able to get up some very big hills indeed. We've seen some great performances from him in Grand Tours on medium mountain stages or on big mountain stages where he manages to get away in an early break. Tends to be the one that lasts longest from the early break if he gets away in a Grand Tour mountain stage. Super climber on his day, and Greg Van Avermaet has some belief that he can take back-to-back stage honours today, wearing the blue jersey of overall race leader, the man from BMC, in fine form indeed. And no surprise, BMC to the fore in protecting the advantage of their race leader and making sure that that lead of the 2 riders up front well, doesn't get too big indeed. So we're through Poggio San Vicino, 6 minutes and 8 seconds the advantage. Matt, well, they're giving them plenty of leeway out front, those 2 riders.
They certainly are. It's just a picture of the very svelte-looking Walt Poles. Came across, of course, from Quick Step last year to join Team Sky to bolster Chris Froome's armoury in the high mountains. A very respectable top 10 placing for Poles yesterday in that rather frenetic dash to the line. Getting a gilet there, but no, this really is a big test. It'd be probably the longest race many of these riders would have done this year, and it's not over easy terrain. You can see now the riders on one of these numerous climbs that pepper the last 50 or 60 kilometres of the course. They've dropped off the biggest climb of the day, and we saw the riders go through the snow line actually, as we see the slow motion replay, a very fuzzy, low res slow motion replay of one of the Bardiani riders coming to grief. And it looks like somehow Contador was clipped. Whether, I don't know what happened there. Well, a couple of riders actually came to grief on that corner. But it just shows how attentive you have to be, especially when riding in such close proximity. And perhaps we're speculating, of course, but perhaps that's something similar that's happened to the Australian duo up the road. They clearly have fallen down. We're trying to get some information to fill you in on that, but nothing at present. But it's easy, even on these dry conditions. Ironically, Declan, dry conditions can lull you into a false sense of security, you know, but on these roads that aren't ridden very often, they're never brushed. You can get, all you need is a bit of gravel or dust on a corner and down you go. And sometimes just a little bit of gravel or dust from the side of the road can be worse at times than the wet. So I think that's probably what's happened. But these 2 are up and running, and they really are 2 powerhouses. You know, well, Luke Durbridge is twice the Australian time trial champion last couple of years, so really used to this solo effort. But Matt Heyman as well, remarkably experienced, has been around for years. Before we, a few moments ago, were talking about his career. You know, he spent 9 years with Rabobank, 4 years with Team Sky, before coming home, as it were, to the Australian setup, but 2 extremely strong rouleurs who really are going well. I mean, there's a steady tempo being set by BMC, but they're holding this lead at 6 minutes, which just shows the amount of power, the amount of watts that this Australian duo are putting out up ahead at the moment.
Yeah, it's Heyman is clean-shaven and Durbridge has the beard. Next time we get a sight of them, 1:42 for Durbridge, 1:43 for Heyman. If you want to separate them, there's no other way to do it.
Or Heyman's got his bottom hanging out of his shorts. That's the other way to identify
pretty obvious,
them, unfortunately.
Actually. Yeah. I didn't want to say it. Yeah, so the peloton is well stretched out at the moment, so this is by no means an easy tempo. They're starting to chip into that advantage of those 2 they're 2 big oxen up front, aren't they? They're strong men, and they're capable in the valleys, away from the hills. They're capable of really testing the bunch, because what happens inevitably is that there's one team or maybe a couple of teams will put a rider or 2 up front. So it's very often, it seems like it's 2 against 180, but it's more like 2 against 2 or 3 riders behind that are actually doing the chasing. Having said that, that's some impressive work that's been done by BMC, because there's a lot of riders in there that aren't much enjoying that right now.
No, you can just tell just by the shape of the peloton. It's not quite, well, it's almost one string. There's a few parts where riders are bunched up 2 or 3 wide. And this is the sort of tempo that is in between flat out and going steady. It's the kind of, it's very difficult to settle into. It's just very, very uncomfortable, not particularly enjoyable. The riders won't have too many opportunities to admire the absolutely gorgeous scenery that they're currently rolling through. But this sort of terrain really does sap the energy. And when they hit the finishing circuit, we've got the 2 brutal ascents of the Crispiero. Only a couple of, well, only about 3 and a bit kilometres in length, but it's very, very steep, and at points it ramps up to 15%, but it goes up in steps, quite wide at the bottom, quite gradual, which almost lulls you into a false sense of security before kicking up in stages. And then, as you've described, they've got a very, very sinuous and technically challenging, demanding descent to the finish, which itself kicks up for the last 250 metres. The riders will obviously see it once, get a chance to get it dialed in, but I think looking at the parcours today, given the amount of kilometres and also the time of this race in the season, the riders haven't had many opportunities to get this sort of kilometres into their legs. And that interview yesterday that we had with Fabian Cancellara was very telling. And he, as well as the parcours, the style of racing here is very different, and it does prepare you, or he thinks it prepares you a little bit better for Milan-San Remo. Although, of course, this race isn't just preparation, but it has the flip side of getting some long, hard, endurance-based kilometres in. And I think another thing we need to mention is that Greg Van Avermaet took 3rd place on 2 of the hotspot sprints earlier today, getting 1 second on each of those occasions. So now he has a 4-second lead over Peter Sagan on the general classification. Yeah,
let's run the rule over the various classifications at the moment. As you say, Matt, Greg Van Avermaet went into today's stage with a 2-second margin over Peter Sagan. Those 2 seconds that he's pinched this afternoon mean that he's now up to that 4-second advantage. Doesn't sound like much. Could be crucial at the end of today, if not tomorrow. And let's get a little look behind. Is there anything significant happening here? I think it's just an indication of how much
it's just the view from the
ground
back
that is being covered by this bunch. It is well, it's at least a few hundred meters long at least, which always tells you that things are very tough indeed out there. So that was interesting little segue. As we see, there's plenty of blood about Matt Hayman. Big guy, isn't he? Well, he's got the world's biggest pair of shorts, and there's not as much lycra in them as there was this morning when he was setting out, but they're shrugging that off. They're not even thinking about that right now. Greg Van Avermaet with that 4-second margin now over Peter Sagan. 8 seconds back to Mallory. Fabian Cancellara at 9 seconds going into today's stage. Braindle at 10 seconds. Navardauskis 13 seconds back. They've all lost an extra 2 seconds, of course, to Van Avermaet today. Looking at the points competition, Peter Sagan with a 6-point advantage over Van Avermaet. He is wearing the red jersey of the overall leader of the points competition. The mountains, as we've said earlier, led going into today's stage by Danilo Wisp, but Quintero now in pole position there to take over that the lead of that competition. And the young riders led by Peter Sagan, but Herrada of this team, Tinkoff Saxo, is looking after the white jersey for Sagan this afternoon. That's the classifications. Benade is back at his team car at the moment, and we're getting set fair for the final 50 kilometres of this stage of Tirreno. Join us again after these. Day 4 of Tirreno Adriatico, and that is not one of the team cars, I can tell you, but that is the scene at the finish line in Castelraimondo. The riders are making their way there, to a total of 226 kilometres for them this afternoon, and they've got about just under 50 kilometres of those of that route remaining. These are the 2 riders out front, just about under 6 minutes advantage for this man on the front, Matt Hayman, behind his teammate from Arica Green Edge and fellow countryman Luke Durbridge. Matt Hayman, number 143, and clean shaven. Big man, 36 years of age. Luke Durbridge, star time trial rider over the last few years. And here we have Fabian Cancellara. While we were away, we missed out on seeing Fabian Cancellara getting a rear wheel following a puncture, and he actually managed to fall over during that process as well. So it's a bit of an ignominious moment for the multi-world time trial champion. And he would dearly love to come out of this week with a stage win, but I think he's more thinking about honing his form for the Spring Classics. And Cancellara, well, let's get a little replay. He just decided to have a little stretch. And oh no, so he didn't fall over.
Oh, he sat down and had a
yeah,
stretch.
well,
there we go.
okay, the much maligned. Yeah, well, I take it all back,
not quite
Fabian.
as embarrassing as we thought.
Yeah, I am certainly eating my words, because he was just having a little stretch and
a little bit of yoga on the side of the road in Tuscany.
Not a bad idea.
Why not use the time wisely? I mean, I think that's something we could all learn from, perhaps. I think we need to see more of that. When riders are waiting for a wheel change, bit of stretching, bit of yoga, and on you go.
It'll be in the coaching
Marginal
manuals
gains,
from now on.
Marginal gains.
I see it featuring in a GCN top 5 coming up very shortly, of some sort, shaper or type. Matt Heyman and Durbridge have also been in the wars. You can see a little bit of a scuff mark there on Luke Durbridge's right shoulder, and plenty of blood on his left elbow as well. Lots of little contact points. These descents, dusty, unpaved. We see the Grand Tours, of course, and it's a ribbon of freshly laid tarmac for the riders right throughout Italy, France and Spain. But sometimes in some of the lesser stage races, even on World Tour events, well, they don't have quite the same assistance from the local authorities in getting the course absolutely perfect for them, and it takes them back to an earlier era of cycling, really, doesn't it?
It certainly does. It's yeah, these roads. I mean, having ridden out here in training as well, you know, you can go for ages and absolutely ages without seeing a car or even another cyclist. That it does feel as if you're in the middle of nowhere, but it is quite beautiful, as we see Fabian Cancellara gradually making his way back up through the peloton. A few moments ago we saw the Team Sky car moving up, tooting its horn as he went along. And basically, because these roads are quite narrow, I mean, as many of you at home will know, there is a convoy order, and it's basically that the BMC car will be the first car because they have the first place rider on general classification, and so on and so forth. So the rider who's in second place overall, their team will be in second place. So, but there is often a bit of a bun fight in the convoy. There's always a bun fight up front in relation to rider's position, but also in the narrow twisting roads, getting your team car back into its original position once you've serviced a rider is of paramount importance. And you often see tactics employed amongst director sportifs. You could actually move forward to give your rider a gilet or some food when you don't really need to, but the plan is to get your car in a position farther up the convoy than you're actually allowed to, but there's no passing place. So you see this happen in Paris-Roubaix, you'll see this happen in Strade Bianche, where there's elements of the course that are extremely narrow with no parking. So there's two tactical battles going on, the one in the peloton, and quite often on the small the small sinuous roads, a battle in the convoy too, which is quite intriguing to watch play out.
They pop up to feed the rider, and then of course unfortunately the other guys can't come back to take back
and then they say, hey, hands up, I can't move, and maybe so it can be quite frenetic. It's quite an interesting place to be, is in a car in a convoy. As you see, a Katusha rider also suffering from a mechanical or a puncture there. I think these roads, there's lots of gravel on these roads, so punctures playing a part. And many riders now dropping back as we head into the last part of this race to get bottles for their riders. And believe you me, the tempo that's being set now by BMC, if you are one of the domestiques who has to drop back to the car and get bottles, it's not easy. You've got
not
to then...
easy at all. We saw Christian Sbaragli desperately trying to hang on to hard. Fabian Cancellara as he was making his way back up through the cars. No problem at all for Cancellara. He's safely ensconced now in the peloton after that little interlude for Pilates and yoga. Meanwhile, Sbaragli has also managed to regain the tail of the peloton, but it was ever so slightly, just that little bit tougher for him. And then you got an illustration there of the relative power that can be put out by Sbaragli's no mean rider himself. He's going very well indeed. And MTN Quebec have a good find in him. But lots of guys have been asked to give a bit of a handout today, and Thierry Hupon of Team Giant Alpecin has plenty of bottles on board. As meanwhile up front, these two Orica Green Edges continuing to toil away in the Tuscan sunshine. Quick update on riders non-starting and non-finishing. Unfortunately, non-starter this morning, Svein Toft. Great effort from him yesterday, got lots of camera time. He had been in the wars the day before and was really struggling and hung on for as long as he could yesterday. Did finish in a group, wasn't last on the stage by any means, but he's decided to non-start today. No doubt a little bit of lingering after effects of of that crash a couple of days ago. And a couple of DNFs today. Francesco Bongiorno and Robert Wagner have also called time on their participation in Tirreno Adriatico 2015. BMC's on the front of the peloton in line astern. Their teammate in blue at the back, enjoying the protection of his fellow riders. They've got two jerseys, haven't they? They've got the green jersey of Mountains leader at the moment on the shoulders of Danilo Wiss at the back of the BMC group. So it's been a good Tirreno for them so far, and they've still got a few more fish to fry.
They certainly have, riding very, very strongly, aggressively. Very good morale in the team when you've got you won a stage, you're leading in 2 classifications, and that feeds through to the riders, to the staff. So there'll be a real buzz going around the BMC team at the moment, but really setting a really quite a furious tempo at the moment. That's Marcus Berghardt on the front, and Manuel Cinziato sat comfortably in his wheel. A real good study of form there as they gradually chip away at the lead of the 2 Australians out in front. It's now hanging out around 5 minutes. That looks like, is that Sam Bennett?
On domestic duty today.
Dropping back to get a cape. It is quite cool out there.
Yeah, maybe he's just gone back for himself, is he? Yeah.
It's a place to do it because it gets very difficult. It's not going to want to be dropping back when they hit that final finishing circuit. So any capes that you don't want on board, you dispose of them, get your last few bottles. And we saw one of the Tinkoffs, I think it was Daniele Benati a few minutes ago, managed to get 9 bottles down his jersey. Quite an impressive feat for the Italian.
So the BMC's on the front of the group in line astern, just over 42.5 kilometres to go. And welcome to viewers on Eurosport International to the 4th day of racing in Tirreno Adriatico 2015. We've got just over 42 kilometres remaining on this, the first of 2 mountain stages this weekend. We've got 2 riders out front with just under 5 minutes advantage. And we've a total of 226 kilometres, as I say, 4 climbs today in total. We've already been over 2 of them. One of which was the arduous ascent of the Poggio San Romualdo, the second of those 2 climbs, 9.9 kilometres. And now we've got 2 climbs at the back end of the stage that are going to be real testers for the riders. 4.2 kilometres, the Crispiero, and they go and do a loop and then go back up the Crispiero again. 6.7% average in 4.2 kilometres, 15% at its peak. And then they have 6 kilometres through to the finish, so on a very sketchy technical descent. So it's going to be a very, very interesting finish indeed. It's nicely poised and placed for a very complicated and far from predictable finish. Plenty of riders believe that they can get into the mix today. So we have that's the situation as we race towards Castelraimondo this afternoon, 226 kilometres. And we've got those 2 riders up front. From Orica Green Edge, the 2 Aussies, Luke Durbridge and Matthew Heyman, at either end of their career. Durbridge just 23 years of age, Matt Heyman 36 years of age. We've had plenty of action in today's stage. I can tell you that the descents haven't been too easy for the riders, despite relatively balmy conditions. That both of the 2 riders up front have been on the ground, and we've seen a couple of other crashes as well. Representatives of Bardiani CSF and the Française de Jeu squad have also been on the floor. Punctures aplenty for the likes of Fabian Cancellara and Alberto Contador, but they're safely back in the peloton, and the peloton are starting to whittle down that advantage, which at one stage was well over 7 minutes. It is now 4 3/4 minutes as the BMCs take their turn. Daniel Oss doing great legwork for the Swiss-owned team as they take responsibility, and why wouldn't they? Because they've got the overall race leader in blue just at the back of the BMC line there. Greg Van Avermaet, stunning victory in yesterday's stage to Arezzo, and with it took the overall race lead, and he has well, he had a 2-second advantage going into today's stage over Peter Sagan. He's managed to pinch a couple of bonus seconds at the first 2 bonus sprints of the day, and with that he's now up to 4 seconds advantage over Sagan. 12 seconds on Mallory, 13 seconds on Cancellara, and the rest That could be critical at the end of today's. There's more bonus seconds on offer as well, of course, at the end. And there we get the virtual situation. Van Avermaet with that 4 seconds, 10 seconds to Mallory, they're indicating now, 11 to Cancellara. Braindla, Navardowska. Steve Cummings still well to the fore. Wonder can he get over the hills today. Castroviejo from Movistar in the top 10, as indeed Boasson Hagen for MTN. Kubeka going well, and Grivko for Astana will be looking after Vincenzo Nibali. So the big overall contenders yet to really show their face in the top 10, but some very strong riders in there at the moment. Peter Sagan leads the overall standings. He's wearing the points jersey today, the red points jersey. Jesus Herrada Lopez is looking after the white jersey on his behalf, and of course Herrada will be similarly looking after Quintana. That's the expectation today.
Yes, it'll be very interesting as we hit this finishing circuit to see which riders, whether we see any attacks, whether we see BMC, for example, set a tempo on the first ascent of the finish circuit climb up the Crispiero. Remember, 3.1 kilometers in length as we look at the overall points classification there. Peter Sagan in red. 6 points behind is Greg Van Avermaet. Just a reminder that the hotspot sprints, there isn't a classification, there isn't a jersey for hotspot sprints, but any points gained on the road count towards the overall points classification.
Yeah, here's the updated situation with the overall climbers standings. Danilo Wiss is wearing that jersey today, but Carlos Quintero of the Colombian squad has managed to make some hay out there on the road. He's taken points at the first 2 climbs, and as a result of which he's leapfrogged Danilo Wiss. Still more points on offer, a total of 10 for these final 2 climbs of the Crispiero. So still an opportunity for Wiss maybe to pinch that one back, but it's going to be tough with the overall contenders coming into the frame at the back end of this stage. Movistar lead the team's classification. That's of less concern to them, I think, than making sure that Quintana is in good shape for the finish of today and tomorrow's stage. Day 4 of Tirreno Adriatico. We have got 2 riders out front with just over 4 minutes advantage as they race towards Castelraimondo on a total of 226 kilometers of racing. That's the medieval watchtower that looks over the Castelraimondo town, and the racers are making their way towards that beautiful medieval town, which they'll reach very shortly. In that 226 kilometers of racing, they have 4 mountain ascents, the final 2 of which are the same climb, the Crispiero. They go up that once and then go around a 13-kilometer lap, and again they take it with just 6 kilometers remaining in the stage, and it's a very, very sharp shock of a climb. 4.2 kilometers in length, just over 6.7% the average gradient of that Crispiero climb, and I think that's really going to test the riders. It's certainly going to test these 2 riders. They've been out front for most of the day. It took a little while for the break to establish itself, but finally Matthew Heyman in picture, and his teammate from Arca Green Edge, Luke Durbridge, were able to assert their authority over the peloton. 2 big units, great additions to what is one of the top team time trial squads in World Tour racing, and they're absolutely perfect for the early break. Really, they're going to put it up to the BMC riders. They're going to need more than 2, I think, to ride through to make sure that they're able to chase those guys down.
They are. It's a big ask for the 2 Australians out in front. They've still got a relatively healthy lead, just over 4 minutes, but it is gradually being eaten away by the power of the BMC squad. And I think at the moment, well, I don't think, I know that they're both starting to suffer. It looks like Matt Heyman perhaps might be the strongest of the 2, the more experienced rider, been on the circuit for a long time, a bit of a classic specialist, finished the top 10 in Paris-Roubaix a couple of years back, if you remember. But just looking at Luke Durbridge, his position on the bike, he's obviously a noted TT specialist, but when you see somebody slide forward on the saddle, we call it riding on the rivet, and it's an old phrase that's been used for years, and it's because basically the rivet of the saddle, when the old leather saddles, was right on the tip of the saddle holding the leather on, and we've seen Luke Durbridge at times sliding right forward, trying to squeeze the energy out And when you start to lose form on the bike, generally riders start to slide a little bit forward. You see riders doing it in time trials, whereas Matt Hayman, a bit more form on the bike, sitting back in the saddle, using his long legs to lead with a bigger gear round. But as you can see, it's very, very differing styles. Indicates to me that the younger rider is really starting to suffer. But they're still putting some real big power through the pedals at the moment, holding the lead at around 4 minutes. But when they hit those 2 final finishing climbs, that's where I think we'll see the lead really eaten into. A stage of this length, it's not so much the racing sometimes that does the damage, it's the road. You can almost wait for the effort to come to you. It's a funny sensation, it's a wearing down process. Once you get over 200 Ks, over undulating terrain, it becomes a real physical effort. And I think we're going to see the peloton absolutely detonated over the last couple of climbs. It's going to be very exciting to watch. But it's not just about your climbing ability, you're going to have to descend well. We've seen a couple of riders already today, Declan, come to grief on these rather, sketchy descents with the dust and the gravel. So I think we might see, it could be a rider that climbs well, but also is willing to take a few risks on the descent as they approach the finish on the last lap. So I'm going to be looking closely at how the riders take this descent.
Yeah, both these riders, of course, showing the scars of battle already. They've both been on the ground. Plenty of other riders have crashed today, despite the beautiful spring conditions. Wonderful visibility, and you would imagine under wheel there'd be plenty of grip, but those descents are a little bit dusty, and I can tell you the finishing descent is a little bit sketchy. It's quite technical. The roads aren't exactly perfect, and it's going to be a challenge for the riders, but at least, as we've said, they will have seen they'll have seen them the first time round before they're going for the line the second time.
No, definitely, that is of a real advantage. It's always, I would imagine a few of the Italian riders may have seen this finish, may know the finish. But for the other riders, although I suppose the flip side is the fact they've got to go up the climb twice, which is extremely hard, but they will see it, they'll know the descent, and they'll know they can basically, as our good friend Sean Kelly says, make that calculation on the finale, on that finish descent, get the lines dialed in right, and look for any hazards too. And perhaps, as well as hazards, look for opportunities, as we see Betancourt.
Yeah, it looks like he's checking out there, because Carlos Betancourt didn't go too well yesterday and was found wanting, finished in a group a little bit, towards the tail of the field. And Carlos Betancourt struggling again, the reigning champion of Paris-Nice. He's not in France this week. The AG Tour Le Mondial squad have sent him to Tirreno Adriatico, and the Colombian rider still struggling to find the form that really made him a star in Giro d'Italia a couple of years ago, and of course in Paris-Nice last year. And you talk about on the rivet, he's almost on the top tube there, isn't he? He's really trying to get the power out by really dragging himself forward on the bike.
Exactly. I mean, I know there's a couple of saddle brands now that actually have fibres or like a nap on the saddle to stop riders sliding backwards and forwards. I know if you look at if we talk about time trialing for a moment, look at the style of Alberto Contador in the time trial, constantly shifting backwards and forwards, because naturally, because of the different sort of effort, the different muscle groups used when turning a bigger gear, you tend to slide forward. So he's a rider that always has to shuffle back. But I know that brands now are looking at trying to keep riders in one position on the saddle. So it's quite interesting the technology used in saddles now. But no, turbo as they call it.
In the past, they've put sort of rough sided tape on the saddle to stop them from
Tony
sliding
Martin put sandpaper on his saddle.
Yeah, and it destroys skin suits, and sometimes destroys the skin underneath as well. So you'd want to be sure that you can afford a skin suit at the end of it. But it does help keep the rider in position. But it's a pretty violent and aggressive way of doing it.
Yeah, especially if you're wearing a white skin suit like Tony Martin was at the back end of the other year.
No, yeah, they can look a bit messy. These guys look a little bit messy as well. Alfie Crockett's on Twitter. It's at DQ Sport for myself, at Real Stevens from Out Alongside. Hashtag Home of Cycling. Proves how strong these riders are. That looks like a nasty cut on Heyman. Surely he needs medical attention. Well, he'll get plenty of attention, I think, at the end of today's action. He's no doubt he's been back to the team car, and they've had a little look at it, and they've cleaned it up. 3 minutes and 44 seconds the advantage for the riders. 32 kilometers remaining. Join us again after these. The bunch are chasing hard to try and get back on terms with the two riders up front from Orica Greenedge, Luke Durbridge and Matthew Heyman, that have been out front since the start of this, the fourth day of racing in Tirreno Adriatico 2015. And inside 30 kilometers to go as BMC of the overall race leader, Greg van Avermaet, take control of the chase. They've been up there all day. Pipo Pozzato, great effort to try and win yesterday's stage, just not quite equal to the power that Van Avermaet was able to generate in the finish in Arezzo, but clearly Pozzato still able to, still has an awful lot to offer in World Tour racing. Pozzato making his way back to the Lampre Merida car for a bit of a conflab and maybe to take on some food, and clearly very relaxed about his situation there, and could be a man to look out for this afternoon as we wait for the riders to make their way to the finish in Castelraimondo. This another one of those jaw-droppingly beautiful Tuscan towns that the race is making their way through.
Yeah, it is rather gorgeous. Sometimes it's just nice to take a few moments and reflect, isn't it, as we look at these gorgeous scenes. And it's great that the race has also been blessed with some beautiful weather. It's crisp, it's fresh, it's sunny. Wonderful racing conditions.
Care to look at a couple of favourites? We've been scanning the sheet today, and I think this the start sheet. I think there's an opportunity for some of the riders that are currently in the top 10 to maybe hang on to their position, and I think we're also going to see some of the general classification contenders that we're looking forward to seeing in action in a big way tomorrow. Big stage tomorrow is the Queen stage to Terminillo, 194 kilometres in total. It finishes with 16 kilometre summit climb to Terminillo, and that's going to be a real leg breaker, and that's going to sort the GC contenders out from the rest. This afternoon, though, it's one of those ones that many more riders can get involved in, just the GC guys, and it could be interesting to see who's going to be in the group that gets to the finish. Will it be a biggish group? Will it be a small group? Will it be a solo rider?
Yeah, I think
Durbridge is
finally,
cracked. Yes.
Turbo. We could see the expression on his face. We could see the rocking of the shoulders, and quite clearly Matt Hayman, the more experienced campaigner, used to the length of the classics, finished a couple of times in top 10s in some of the monuments of the sport. Now riding up the road, but what a brave effort by the former Australian time trial champion. It is game over for him. He'll just try and recuperate and recover as much as he can, possibly suffering from that earlier crash. We don't know when that occurred, but they've certainly been bloodied since we've been on air. So, but a brave effort by Luke Durbridge. So now it's just Matt Hayman, the vast experienced classic specialist, riding solo.
San Severino Marche, another one of the beautiful sights on the way. Just under 3.5 minutes advantage for the two riders up front. BMC starting to get a little bit of company up towards the front. They were, all the other teams, absolutely delighted to see them set the pace on the front, but now some of the general classification contenders and the contenders for stage honours today, those teams starting to get their riders into position. We just see AG Tour Le Mondial in the brown and white colours, just starting to position Domenico Pozzovivo, the diminutive figure of Pozzovivo, and here's another very distinctive face and figure in the peloton, Pipo Pozzato. He's been back at his team car, and he's not panicking. He's working his way back up into the bunch relatively carefully, and he'll then try and trundle his way up to the front without burning too many matches and get himself into position, because things are about to get hectic. I can tell you, the Crispiero starts with 23 kilometres to go, so about 3.5 kilometres from the bottom of this penultimate climb of the day. The man up front, Matthew Hayman of Orica Green Edge, has jettisoned his teammate Luke Durbridge, not quite able to match the immense power of Matt Hayman, who's clearly, well, he's in storming form, and he's a big, imposing figure on a bike, isn't he?
He certainly is. A real display of power. For most of his career, he spent time in the service of others, riding on the front, so he'll be used to this. He'll be used to having his nose in the wind, but looks still, despite him being out in front all day, still looks full of fight, immensely powerful, and still has a relatively healthy lead despite the best efforts of BMC. 26Ks to go, a lead of just over 3 minutes from Matt Hayman, looking remarkably strong and still full of fight, very powerful indeed. But of course we've got those two awful, difficult ascents of the Crispiero to come. The summit is first reached at 207 kilometres, then again at 220 kilometres before the plunge down to the finish.
Just got a side of Jens de Busqueret at the back of the peloton. Luca Paolini there as well. He was in the mix at the back end of yesterday's stage. Might be a bit difficult for him to get over the Crispiero twice. Once might be a reasonable ask. Twice is going to be tough for them, though. And De Busqueret doesn't look like he's too interested in getting involved either. He took a great stage victory, of course, a couple of days ago in Cascina, winning the crash-marred finishing sprint, as we get close-up shot of all the various different sensors on Heyman Scott. He's got the timing chip in red, and of course he's got something to pick up the cadence and wheel speed also attached to that rear stay.
And also a reminder, if you look closely, when we flick back to Matt Heyman, if you look closely on his stem of his handlebars, you'll see some tape on there with the markings of what happened, of what's in store as he passes through the 25-kilometre to go marker. On there will be the feed zone, the climbs, the hotspot sprints. But at the moment, it's just about making sure or trying to maintain this effort.
Does it say World of Hurt on that sticker?
I think it should do. Yeah. Well, Jens's bike used to say, well, shut up legs, wasn't it? But no, I think, yeah. There can be several reminders on there, but he'll be counting down the kilometres today.
Well, he's added to the hurt by being off his bike, of course, as you see there, the scars of victory.
It can
only adds to the legend, really, doesn't it?
It can. For us, it makes it look, you know, it makes it look more epic. It adds to the theatre of the thing. I mean, the bottom line is he will be in pain tonight. It'll probably be a little bit difficult sleeping when you've got a lot of skin loss due to the road rash. But what it can do, just after falling off and remounting, as you see some riders taking one of the lay-bys as a shortcut to perhaps move up the peloton.
One of the Sky Riders is, he's unshipped his chain, so he needs to get in to the side to get a little bit of Salvatore Puccio, the Italian rider with Team Sky, who's unshipped his chain, as I said. He's also clearly picked up a front wheel puncture because he's jettisoning that front wheel.
Yeah, lots and lots of punctures today. He hadn't
actually his chain is on, so yeah. I don't know. Yeah, he obviously got it on before he got across.
Been a lot of riders suffering from punctures today. Lots of chippings in the road, but he's soon back and moving. The key when getting a wheel change is making sure you can get into the convoy as soon as possible, because there was some real pressure being applied now at the front, and Tinkoff Saxo also joining in the pacemaking, helping out. We've got Trek Factory Racing also at the front. It looks like Kirienka also suffering a rear wheel puncture. This just shows.
Well, I don't think there's a team that hasn't been affected by punctures today. The roads are absolutely, they've got flint sharp stones, and Kirienka doesn't look too pleased about that. He's disappointed, I think, about the speed of service, perhaps not aware that Puccio has recently got service, and that's probably slowed down the process a little bit. Kirienka.
This is a very, very long, looking for a complete bike change, perhaps. Very annoyed. As each second ticks by, it's going to make it harder for him to get back. I'm sure a rider of the calibre of Vasily Kirienka will get back into the peloton, but this is a very, very long wait.
They're at the bottom of the climb, so this is not the right time for this to happen, that's for sure. Not that you pick the time, but he finally gets a bike, and service just not as quick as he would have liked, and now he wants to, does he want to... Oh, he wants to swap his bottles. Yeah.
The thing is, what happens is generally the roof racks have 7 bikes nowadays. But if your bike's on the inside, if you're not a protected team leader, your bike could be on the inside. Therefore, you have to remove other bikes to get his bike first.
Kirienka's safely on his way. The bunch are on this penultimate climb of the day. We'll get a break out of the way back after these. 21.5 kilometres remaining. We're on the penultimate climb of the day, the Crispiero, which the riders will see. This is the first of 2 ascents of this climb. And the lone leader out front is Matthew Heyman of Orica Greenedge. He's been out there all day. He had Luke Durbridge for company for most of the afternoon. Durbridge has been jettisoned, and the bunch are making significant progress up at the moment, and lots of riders struggling at the back, struggling to get back on. We saw before the break Vasily Kirienko of the Sky squad was unfortunately got very slow service. His teammate Salvatore Puccio had just got service before him, and a little bit of frustration for Kirienko that he didn't get that spare bike quite as quick as he would have liked. Luke Durbridge, who, as I said, has been jettisoned by Matthew Heyman after some great work by the pair of them all afternoon. Durbridge is picked up by the peloton, which is being led by Trek Factory Racing, and it looks like Fabian Cancellara that's bossing the bunch. Is he trying to set something up maybe for Arredondo, his teammate? It might be a great opportunity for to spring Arredondo for the first time this year.
Well, I did see the very, very small figure of Arredondo set a couple of wheels back, but Fabian Cancellara looking ahead to, of course, to Milan-San Remo. This is a race, of course, he has won before himself. As we get back to the front, and that's Matt Hayman losing time in Spade. Still got a lead of 1 minute 21. Luke Durbridge about to be mopped up by the peloton, but very interesting to see Cancellara there. Of course, also look out for Trek Factory Racing's Volker Mollema, who wants to do well on general classification here. The parcours of this race, especially today and tomorrow, really suits Mollema, should he be in form. But both Arredondo and Mollema, both not too far behind their team, well, their leader, the classic specialist Fabian Cancellara, who really is pressing on it. He's using quite a low gear for a big man.
Oh, it's an average of over 9%, remember, 15% ramps, and is this the instruction for the team cars and motorbikes to keep in and keep out of the way? But look at the contrast in the pace of ascent from Fabian Cancellara and from Matthew Hayman up front. Hayman's been out front all day, remember, and Cancellara has been able to benefit from all the work that's been done by the BMC squad. He's been sitting in the wheels, but he's got the diminutive figure of Julian Arredondo on his wheel. And Hayman's almost coming to a stop there. This is absolutely excruciating. And he's still got 2 kilometers to go before he reaches the top. So Hayman, well, I don't think there's any doubt that he's going to lose. Well, I would be surprised if he hangs on to the lead by the time they reach the top of the hill. In fact, he'd be lucky to still be leading at 1 kilometer from the top. It'd be great if the graphic was out of the way to see just what sort of a sprocket he's got on the rear. Now we start to see the attacks. Arredondo is quick to react to that one, and that's Vicioso of Team Katusha that's decided to try his luck. Arredondo clearly feeling pretty frisky. Interesting that he's decided to go on the penultimate climb of the day. So many of the other riders, I think, will be keeping their powder dry for as long as they possibly can for that final ascent. As I say, the final ascent starts with 10 kilometers left, and 6 kilometers to go is when it finishes.
Poor old Matt Hayman almost riding himself to a standstill there. If you look at his sprockets, he's actually in the lowest gear he can, but he's going so slowly, he's hardly turning it round. Paying for his earlier efforts, and Fabian Cancellara also pulling the pin after setting up Arredondo. But because of the distance of this race, because of what the riders have still yet to face, I think you'll see the main protagonists just checking each other. We've not seen Contador do anything yet, just Arredondo. It looks like a Visconti, the former Italian road champion for Movistar, now taking it up at the front.
One of the guys I was looking at the beginning of today's stage, Giovanni Visconti, former Italian road champion, and is that Scarponi with him as well, former overall winner of this race, a stalking horse perhaps for the Astana squad. Remember, they have got Vincenzo Nibali.
This is an interesting situation, because what this actually does, it forces Tinkoff Saxo to chase, and I can see just by his shape on the bike is Ivan Basso setting a tempo at the front, not panicking. What he doesn't want to do is go too hard just yet, doesn't want to isolate Alberto Contador, but a great bit of attacking here, some good tactics by Astana, Movistar and Trek Factory Racing to really put the boot in to make Tinkoff Saxo chase.
So Arredondo is in there, so is Visconti. Arredondo on the right-hand side, 1-2. He's Trek Factory Racing, white and black. Movistar have Visconti. He really knows how to pick out a win. When it's his time and when he's on form, he knows, give him the sniff a finish line, and he knows how to convert. A couple of stage wins, I think, in Giro d'Italia 2 years ago, to go with a very, very impressive Palmares indeed. Tinkoff Saxo on the front of the bunch for Alberto Contador. Vincenzo Nibali playing a watching brief. He's got Scarponi just ahead, so he doesn't need to get involved. So interesting tactics and great card to play for the Astana squad.
Look at the effort here by Visconti, just showing the gradient. It kicks up here at around 15%, forcing the riders to get out the saddle, but all three of these riders absolutely consummate climbers. Scarponi, the eldest of this quartet, but Visconti himself, still 32 years of age. None of the main contenders yet wanting to attack, but given the distance, they've spent over 5 hours in the saddle, so it's absolutely crucial that you time your effort right. If you spend too much energy on this climb, you could completely capitulate on the second descent of this brutal climb. So a lot of the other riders just checking themselves at the moment, but as I said, a good tactical move. Scarponi now going to the front.
Winner of this race in 2009. Arredondo on his wheel, the youngest of the group, 26 years of age, the young Colombian. Really made a name for himself last year with a stage victory in Giro d'Italia, a couple of stage wins in Tour of Saint Louis. And the Tifosi are out in force. And I hope that doesn't spoil Scarponi's concentration, because he's got a bit of work to do. 20 kilometers remaining as they approach the top of this climb. And you can see the sort of damage that this has done, and some of the stars over the last few days are really starting to suffer out there. We've got Colombian riders, surprisingly, Rubiana Chavez. We might have expected a little bit more from him this afternoon. He's suffering in a big way. Arashiro and Ryder Hagedal, yeah, from Cannondale Garmin.
Clearly not informed just yet, but maybe looking ahead to the Grand Tours. But a good tempo being set. Only 3 Tinkoff Saxo riders left. It's Roman Kreuziger, it looks like, sat on the wheel of Alberto Contador, and Ivan Basso, setting that steady tempo at the front, that very distinctive heel down technique that Basso has, but clearly a man on very good form.
Welcome Basso was a great help to him, wasn't he, in Tour of Andalusia, and that stage that Alberto Contador took the day before. Of course, Chris Froome took the jersey back in sensational style, but that day Contador looked imperious and helped in no small measure, I think, by the attack from Ivan Basso, who looks to be on pretty good form. Yeah, Basso, I think he's got his mojo back almost. He's got a focus. We talked about Basso at length yesterday, perhaps been in the wilderness for a couple of years. He's no longer really a main threat or a GC contender, but still a very classy rider indeed. And he's setting a tempo here that is putting many, many classy riders out the back. But look at fifth wheel there. You've got Nairo Quintana there. Wout Poels is also there, and Vincenzo Nibali, the Italian the Italian champion. Rigoberto Urán in the blue of Ethics Quickstep with the flowing locks. So all of the main GC contenders in the mix at the moment, but certainly not panicking. Meanwhile, Cano Ardila of the Colombian squad tries to work his way back into contention. The fuchsia of Lampre at the back is Grumet, who's clearly toiling in the sunshine, but not much enjoying himself at the moment, and just willing the end of this climb to come. Meanwhile, Visconti is in attack mode, no doubt about it, but he's the most willing, the most eager of these 3 riders. He appears to be the strongest at the moment, and he is putting the hurt on the other 2, but the gap now, well, they're indicating 5 seconds. I think it's quite a bit more than that. I think it's around about 20 seconds now. Visconti is sitting at 46 seconds overall. Looking behind, Arredondo not willing to work at the moment, still perhaps thinking of the final ascent of this climb. So no
Visconti
willingness there
again
from Scarponi either, as Scarponi just rolls around Visconti and looks over his shoulder, looks left and right as if to say, I'm not interested in this. But Visconti's in attack mode and he really wants this. Scarponi is happy enough to sit on. All his thought really is about protecting the situation for Vincenzo Nibali, so he offers a great option for the Astana team, and if he opts not to work and the likes of Visconti are happy enough to let him not work, then, well, I think that's an excellent opportunity. Having said that, they're all working here because this is a leg-breaking ascent. There's not much in the way of wind benefit, slipstream effect. Scarponi just edging around Visconti just after they get to the top of that climb, but it's Visconti that takes the 5 points on offer for the King of the Mountains. Arredondo showing the pain on his face, but still looks relatively relaxed, and now attacks coming from the peloton. Katusha getting involved. It looks like that's the figure of Daniel Moreno, a great climber. We haven't seen much of Joaquim Rodriguez yet, but I think he's still in there. Several of the red and white Katusha jerseys there. What an epic look. What a fantastic picture we got there of the top of the Crispiero climb as Danny Moreno attempts to bridge the junction between the group up front and the bunch behind, containing the overall race leader, Greg Van Avermaet. Will he be able to survive over these 2 climbs? There's confirmation of the 3rd ascent of the day, the first ascent of the Crispiero. 5, 3 and 2 points on offer, respectively, going to Visconti, Scarponi and Arredondo. Astana continuing to control the bunch. We're heading towards the finish line in Castelraimondo, and they've got one more ascent of the climb to which this castle is attached. Crispiero, little hamlet at the top of a very short, sharp shock of a climb that has really, really tested the riders so far, and they've got to do it all over again. They've whittled down that group to, well, a decent size, but they've certainly separated the wheat from the chaff already, and there's going to be a further selection made. Within the next 4 or 5 kilometres, they'll hit the bottom of that climb again.
What a quality quartet. Daniel Moreno himself, a winner in the past couple of years ago, took out Flèche Wallonne, so really at home in these short, sharp, steep climbs. So a great quartet, some real climbing quality. Moreno, Scarponi, Arredondo. Absolutely fantastic. And of course, Tinkoff Saxo now being forced to chase. Interestingly, didn't see many of the BMC riders at the front. Be nice to get a view of the peloton. The other big team to have missed out, or two big teams, Ethics Quickstep, the team of Rigoberto Urán, and of course Team Sky.
What sort of a gap now? That's the question. What sort of a gap do these guys need when they hit the bottom of the final climb? What sort of a gap do they need when they hit the top of the final climb? As that will be the final kilometre. So very shortly we're going to get a look at the finish line. Then they'll head through the finish line and back out for one more lap. And what sort of a gap do these guys need? I would venture to suggest it has to be at least 30 seconds starting that finishing hill.
I think so. When you look at the sort of firepower behind and you look at the kind of form, if we assume that Alberto Contador has the form he had in Andalusia, he could possibly shut down 30 or 40 seconds on a 3.1 kilometre climb, as where Giovanni Visconti for Movistar in the blue there leads this quartet of riders, looking for some help from Arredondo, but just checking. This just quite a technical finale here, Declan. Is going to be key when they come into the sprint for the finish.
Tricky little right-hander there. There's another right-hander just within 250 metres of the line as well. Visconti is the one that seems most agitated. He's doing all the looking over his shoulder, left and right. Scarponi seems very, very cool, doesn't he? Very relaxed about this situation. He's totally comfortable with what he's done, and he's put himself into a position perhaps to get involved for stage honours as well, even if Nibali does manage to make it back up to him. That is the ideal situation for Scarponi. That's what they're trying to create. Visconti, you wonder whether he's thinking about individual success or whether it's all about the riders behind, including Nairo Quintana of his Movistar squad. 12.5 kilometres remaining. Number 21 in the colours of the Italian national road race champion, the Astana rider, is Vincenzo Nibali, twice a winner of the Tirreno Adriatico. The reigning champion, two riders in front of him, and the rider just in between the two of those in the red jersey is Peter Sagan, well capable of getting over the shorter hills and has a fearsome finishing kick. Don't rule out Peter Sagan. He must be absolutely burning with fires of ambition after just failing to take victory on the last two stages. 2 second places, there's no greater motivation to come up with a result than that. So Peter Sagan well capable of getting over that finishing hill.
If you think back a couple of years ago, there was a particularly difficult stage and some awful weather conditions. A hillier finish circuit than this, in fact, that Peter Sagan beat Chris Froome and Vincenzo Nibali on that particular day. So when he's going well, Peter Sagan can easily get over these sorts of climbs. And he's there in the mix, the peloton drastically reduced, but thankfully, from the viewpoint of Alberto Contador, he has some reinforcements, and it looks like they're shutting this down. 10 seconds now the lead, well into the final lap.
Well, that's hardly going to be enough. About 35 in the lead group. Scarponi continues to glass crank it. He's looking over his shoulder and hoping and expecting, I think, that he's going to see Vincenzo Nibali very shortly. Meanwhile, a little bit more urgency from Julian Arredondo, certainly from Giovanni Visconti in the dark blue colours of the Movistar squad. And now Astana continuing to plough onwards to try and get the man in third position. He's getting on the radio to find out what the situation is up front. What's the gap? Well, surely he can see it. 8 seconds is the indication. So I think that motorbike is going to be coming out very shortly. And now the shot will widen and we should be able to see those 4 riders up front. It's not a very big group, is it?
You can just see Greg Van Avermaet in blue right in the centre of the screen, sat comfortably in the vacuum of that little the mini peloton now. This natural selection that has come about by virtue of that very, very brutal climb. Heading back to the front now, Scarponi in second wheel behind his fellow countryman Giovanni Visconti for Movistar, but the fluoro yellow of Tinkoff Saxo really bearing down, and it looks like they've got this under control with one more ascent of this brutal climb still to come.
Well, the roadbook says that it'll be about 800 metres from now and they'll hit the bottom of the climb once more. They'll hit it with a thud because it is a pretty steep one indeed. 9.3%, just to give you the numbers again. 4.2 kilometres in total. That's it, shut down. Great and brave effort from those 4 riders up front. You wonder for Danny Moreno, particularly for Julian Arredondo, whether that wasn't perhaps burning matches a little bit early. Didn't quite work out. Great to see the ambition of it all, though.
Definitely. Well, it was a good card to play. I mean, I think Balkan is also in the mix, but it forced Tinkoff Saxo to chase. That was a hard chase to bring it back. I wouldn't imagine that Kreuziger and Basso would be able to help if Contador accelerates. So it might leave Alberto Contador actually isolated at the top of this next climb. So it was a good move by the other teams. But now AG2R going to the front.
Now AG2R Le Mondial, they have Domenico Pozzovivo, the diminutive character, and he likes these sort of climbs. It's short and sharp, as we've said.
It did look like Betancourt was in there as well.
Well, very impressive.
Bit of a surprise.
A little earlier on, it looked as if he was checking out of it altogether and dropping back. He managed to work his way back on, and that is said. It may have been that he was just going back to the team car, so if so, we maligned him. Humblest apologies to the Colombian star. Hasn't appeared to have arrived on absolutely top form to Tirreno Adriatico. You would expect, though, that they'll be looking at Pozzovivo as their best option going into this this final ascent of the Crispiero.
It's interesting that AG2 are taking it up. Tinkoff Saxo, we're pretty happy that another team is making the tempo. Give the other riders a chance for a breather, but this is the lower slopes. It's an incline, but a gradual one before the road really rears up and kicks in. Now Alberto Contador looks like he sat on the wheel of Balkan, sitting at around 10th wheel. Also in there, Vincenzo Nibali. And Daniel Moreno sat 4th wheel, former winner of Flèche Wallonne, a great climber. Also, it looks like, is it the figure of Edvald Bosenhagen? Also in there. Interesting to see him in the mix. No, it's actually, it is Edvald Bosenhagen, number 131 in the black and white stripes. So him clearly climbing very, very well at the moment.
Great to see Edvald Bosenhagen back on good form after a couple of difficult years with Team Sky, and clearly he's rediscovered his mojo. Steve Cummings is there as well. He's well up overall, and he's managed to make that group. Dan Martin well to the fore yesterday, came into this first race of the year, wasn't sure about his form, but clearly has got reasonable form heading into the finale of this stage. So AG2R Le Mondial looking to set up Domenico Pozzovivo for the win. Who else is going to get involved? Is that Van den Aert there for Lotto? They have also a couple of Katusha riders, and well, Katusha have got a plan.
They certainly have. They've got Gianni Brambilla there for Ethics Quickstep as well. Just sat in the white and the blue top, and Alberto Contador just moves up the outside. Balkan also there, Vincenzo Nibali in the blue, with the Italian flag on the inside. So still quite a large number of riders in here. Nara Quintana just had a couple of wheels back in the dark navy blue. The Colombian winner of the Giro d'Italia last year, still in the mix, but a good tempo being set here by AG2R.
Yeah, Noscentini sitting on the his second wheel here, and I think we're going to see Pozzovivo coming up very shortly. They've still got 4 riders involved. Pozzovivo's going to sit, you see him sitting there about 8th or 10th wheel. So he's got 3 teammates on the front of the group to do the legwork, and he's going to try and pick his wheels a little bit later up the climb.
It's all a matter of when will the fireworks commence? Who will land the first blow?
Cano Ardila at the back for Team Colombia.
And that's Maxime Menderel getting dropped for Europcar. Another rider out of the back.
Good job to last as long as he did with the Frenchman with the Europcar squad. Has met his Waterloo.
He certainly has, and a few of the Katusha riders also swinging off now. The tempo a bit hard, offering his bidon. And another rider, if you look on the outside there, the distinctive bobbing head of Dan Martin for Cannondale Garmin in the green and the black. Also Mikel Nieve, the Spaniard on Team Sky.
Van der Broek is still in there. And Lotto Soudal have several riders indeed involved. Maxime Montfort is there, and Jürgen Rolands.
Walt Poles also there, just moving up on the outside for Team Sky. So still a really good tempo being set by AG2R.
Viermos of AG2R Le Mondial on the front of the group. Nero Quintana, you see, in the movie star outfit, just obscured momentarily.
Yeah, that was Walt Poles in front of him. The Team Sky rider, long lanky figure, a great addition to the Sky squad. This is a very, very good tempo that's being set here.
He's gulping air. Viermos, interesting style as he works away, exercising his jaw. as much as he is his legs, but it's a very effective style. It's doing great damage to this group behind. We see Vincenzo Nibali a little bit further back. He's right on the wheel of Alberto Contador. Contador hanging out of that big gear in his distinctive style. Meanwhile, riders going south.
That's Paul Voss for Bora Argon 18, the German rider, former wearer of the Mountains jersey in the Giro d'Italia. Losing contact. But look at the figure there, Alberto Contador in the middle of your screen, bobbing out of the saddle, sat on the wheel of Nairo Quintana. And
it's not difficult to pick out Adam Yates, is it? Because he's got the bandage on his chin. He was on the ground a couple of days ago in that finale into Cascina. In those first of 3 crashes that afflicted that stage, he's got well, he's clearly got a little bit of repair work done to that wound, and he's trying to put it behind him. Climbing very well, absolutely the go-to man for Team Orica Green Edge. And now we have the overall race leader. Greg Van Avermaet is starting to struggle. He's not enjoying this one little bit. He gets over the climbs better than a big man ought to, really. He's, as sprinters go, probably one of the better climbers, but this is a big ask. Can he survive to the top of this climb? This group is only going to be whittled down more and more. He's still in there at the moment, but for how much longer?
There's a bit of a plateau here. The road does level, gives him an opportunity to fight for the wheels. Perhaps getting the slipstream of somebody, recompose himself. He does have a teammate for company who's just moving up on the outside.
Got about 1.5 kilometres remaining. And that's the back of the group. So, Greg, you've got to try and hang on. And he knows it. He doesn't need to be told right now. You can be sure he is being told. And things are going to get a bit steeper as we go further up this hill. But he's within the last kilometre and a half as a relentless pace is being set. And what an amazing effort. Distinctive gulping style of Viermos, the French rider with AG Tour La Mondiale.
This is really good to see. This is where the road kicks up again. It's all about fighting for position. If Greg Van Avermaet needs to try and hold on, but he's way down now. Will he hold on to the peloton? But no attacks from any of the main protagonists. You can just see Roman Kreuziger.
Well, that's a surprise. When are the attacks going to come? Because you really would have expected at this point, but that somebody would try their luck. We saw, a few opening salvos first time up the Crispy Arrow. This is it for real, and there's the overall race leader. Van Avermaet hoped that he'd be able to challenge for stage honours this afternoon. Hoped indeed that he'd be able to hang on to his overall race lead. He'll be lucky at this stage, to be even close to it. He has a teammate, but Van Avermaet is in trouble here. And Visconti, who was in that earlier break, is also struggling here. Will they be able to get back on? They've got another, kilometre of this sort of pain and suffering, and that's a long, long time when things are going south.
It certainly is. It's Brent Bookwalter, the American rider, looking over his shoulder for his team leader. Greg Van Avermaet, in an absolute world of pain, gets out of the saddle to lever his frame up this ridiculously steep climb. It looks like he's losing ground with every single pedal stroke, but at least he's got a teammate with him as AG2R still set this infernal tempo.
17 seconds is the GBS indication of the deficit that Van Avermaet has at the moment. That's only going to increase, but will he be able to maybe drag a little bit of that back on the descent after the climb? Looks like we could have a group going to the finish here because no signs of great activity. Matt, are you surprised? Would you have expected a little bit more activity from the GC guys?
I did see, given the nature of this climb, given the gradients, it would have. I thought we may have seen attacks from Alberto Contador, but to be honest, he looks to be labouring. His style is not quite as fluid as it normally is, and Greg Van Avermaet really, I wouldn't say he's held up the white flag, but really struggling on these steep gradients. Is losing ground now to even his teammate.
Yeah, needs to give Bookwalter a bit of a shout there, just to say, just crank it back a little bit, and maybe we can get back involved.
A rider who does look very composed, or two riders that look particularly composed, more perhaps than Alberto Contador, Vincenzo Nibali and Nairo Quintana look very, very easy. But I am surprised, to answer your question, Declan, that we didn't see any attacks. Perhaps we might see one just over the top.
Well, here comes Pozzovivo up the group, gliding up around the outside as if this was really a little jaunt in the park, and Pozzovivo surely has to attack. He doesn't have a sprint worth the mention, and his team have done a great job of setting things up, and here indeed does come Pozzovivo. You see he's absolutely pocket-sized, and we're going to have a big attack from him very, very shortly.
We certainly are. He's at second wheel now. He almost looks like he's a youngster, a schoolboy on a bike, but Alberto Contador also checking while Pole's in fourth wheel for Team Sky. A big attack here.
Katusha trying to set it up.
It looks like it's Losada for Katusha.
But we're oh so close to the top of this climb. Now it does ramp up towards the top, so you know it's well worth waiting until you get a little bit closer. And Pozzovivo doesn't look like he's got the breakfast for that one.
It's Caruso from Katusha who's opened up a bit of the lead. Gianpaolo Caruso, the Italian on the Russian squad, opened up a bit of a lead. Pozzovivo can't quite hold the wheel. This is an attack from a man we didn't expect, but a great move by the Katusha rider.
Super motivated. An Italian rider on the Katusha squad, chased by an Italian on the French Indicatore Le Mondial squad. And Pozzovivo's measuring his effort well, because it looks as if he's just inching his way across to Caruso. A very, very impressive attack indeed. And these two riders, every chance of cresting the summit of the Crispiero with the lead. And will, as Caruso looks around, what does he see? He sees that riders are coming up, and that is Wout Poels. Wout Poels of the Team Sky squad races past Pozzovivo. Pozzovivo doesn't quite have it. Poels goes for it. He's going to summit in the lead of this race. Will he have enough in hand?
That was an absolutely stinging attack by Poels. Very, very good timing. If he opens up a bit of a lead on this descent.
Well, that's the question now. What does Wout Poels do? He has to go for it. There's no question of tactics now. He just has to go for it. There's no point in him thinking about sitting back. At least he'll give an armchair ride to any teammates he might still have behind. I'm not sure there are too many of them at the moment. That really has whittled down the group. And that's the other question, of course. How many riders are going to be able to get back into contention on the descent? This is a tough descent, technical and very, very difficult to get back into it. Oh, things going so badly now for 1 minute and 13 seconds for Greg Van Avermaet, the overall race leader. And, well, he's unlikely to hang on to that jersey, because he's not going to close that gap now between now and the finish. Just 6 kilometres from the top of the hill. Wout Poels is clear and racing to glory in the Tirreno Adriatico. Does he have enough in hand? It's a tiny advantage over the group behind. Surely it's going to be too much for him to hang on, but he does at least have the advantage that this is a little bit of a technical descent, so he's going to have to, well, lay it all on the line here in a big way.
Yeah, the thing that Wout Poels has in his favour as he hits the 5 kilometre mark, he only lies at 19 seconds overall, so he's got a lot to gain, not only the stage win, but a move up the general classification. The thing is here, Declan, who is going to chase? And it's the team of Katusha. We've got 2 riders on the front, and there's the blue jersey of Greg Van Avermaet cresting the climb at 1 minute and 13 seconds. So it's game over for him, but who will be the new leader of the general classification in Tirreno Adriatico? At the moment, it's advantage Poels.
Advantage Poels. Where's Peter Sagan? We keep an eye out for him. Has he managed to hang on in the group? Wearing the red jersey of the overall points leader. He was well to the fore first time up the Crispiero, but we've had tighter shots since then, and it would be nice to know, wouldn't it? Wout Poels, well, he could only think about really gunning for it. First year with Team Sky, with the Omega Pharma Quick-Step squad last year, took a stage of the Basque Country, and he's a great acquisition for Team Sky this year, and, well, opportunity for a stage win. What's the gap?
It was a similar situation in the Tour de Basque Country last year when he went away. It was over quite a nasty climb with a descent into the finish, not as long as this, but a very, very similar move, a stealth sort of move. As we see Alberto Contador there. 3 riders from Katusha now leading the chasers. 1 or 2 riders now get back into the mix at the back of this chasing group.
That's Van den Broek at the back of this group, rolling back the ears a little bit, comfortably in that lead group, and in good form. Jurgen van den Broek of Lotto Soudal. Katusha at the front, taking it on. They realise they have to. Alberto Contador might be satisfied with Wout Poels going up the road. Would he be confident that he can beat him on the Terminillo tomorrow?
I would have thought so. I mean, he's still a danger man. He's a very, very good climber. He's come across to Team Sky because of his climbing attributes and has actually spent quite a lot of time training with Chris Froome down in South Africa at only a few days' notice, so he's clearly in very good condition. But what a very, very well-timed and powerful move by that rider from the Netherlands.
So that is the group that is chasing. On the right-hand side, they're chasing the man up front, and we've got 14 seconds indicated for Wout Poels. He has a chance. At least that's worth piling it on. You can be sure the word coming from the car now is, Wout, give it absolutely everything. Hold nothing back here, because there is every chance that you could come up with a stage victory today. At the bottom of the climb, they have just 500 meters remaining in the stage. They've got a right-hander with about 250 meters to go, and then just a little gentle ramp up, which would would be absolutely nothing in the last 250 metres were it not for the fact that he'll be absolutely at his max and will have been at his max for the previous 20 kilometres or more. 226 kilometres in total. It's a long old spin in the mountains, and he's now got 19 seconds. So those Katusha riders behind able to make no inroads on this fantastic effort from Wout Poels.
Well, it's a very technical descent, but there are elements where you have to pedal on. Of course, he has the advantage. He can pick his own line. He takes a quick glance over his shoulder. The lead now up to 20 seconds. All he's got to do now is negotiate this descent as safely as he can, not take too many risks. But he's basically with one team chasing and no real cohesion behind. It's still advantage Poels with 1.8 kilometres to go. This is exciting stuff.
Katusha lose a rider, so it's down to 2 riders chasing one. 19 make that 18 seconds, so they're trading tenths of a second in every corner. At the moment, Wout Poels is able to pick his line. Of course, he's not getting any help from any motorbikes in front of him, or cars, or indeed any tracking from any other riders, so he has got to pick his own line. And of course he needs to find the right tarmac as well, because there are so many different surface variations throughout this descent that it must be absolutely nerve-wracking. And down to 16 seconds, the advantage is going to be dicey. It's going to be really tough. It's all done, I think, for Van Avermaet. They're still indicating 1 minute. They're giving us an indication of the gap, but it's going to be tough, or it's absolutely impossible now for Van Avermaet. Inside the last kilometre, they're under the kite. And now, Wout Poels, can he hang on? 17 seconds, it goes back up. So it's, well, he gains a bit on a corner and then loses it on the straight and then gains another little bit, but they're all under the kite now.
I don't think he's going to be caught now. As long as he negotiates this corner safely, it looks like it's going to be victory for Team Sky and Wout Poels from the Netherlands. What an absolutely fantastic ride, and what a start to the season for them.
So Wout Poels takes it into the finish, and nobody is surely going to catch this Dutchman now. It's a wonderful performance for the 27-year-old Dutchman as he races clear to victory in Tirreno Adriatico, day 4. They're into Castelraimondo. He's through the final left-hand turn. Now he can start to savour victory, because as he looks over his shoulder, he realises that he's clear and no one is going to catch him now. It's going to be a victory for Team Sky. It's going to be a victory for Wout Poels as he takes the win in Castelraimondo and celebrates that fact with 2 arms in the air. We've got a sprint coming behind, but it's for minor placings, because the winner today is certainly Wout Poels. Superb effort for him, and who gets up for second? Is that Rigoberto Urán taking bonus seconds from Joachim Rodriguez. Perito getting up for third, and that could well have important implications later in the week. But no doubt about the winner, and certainly also an overall contender. Wout Poels takes the win.
There he is, getting a congratulations from his teammate Mirko Nieve, the Spaniard. What a start to the season Team Sky have had. Another victory on the road. It looks like we'll have to get confirmation, but he was 19 seconds down on the general classification. Had a relatively good, healthy lead at the finish, plus, of course, Declan, the 10-second time bonus. We could see confirmation of, well, it could be that he actually has ridden himself into the leader's jersey too.
No doubt about it, but that the man that's wearing it at the moment won't be wearing it at the conclusion of today's effort, because still out and just going under the kite now is Greg Van Avermaet. It's been a great defence, but unfortunately just didn't quite have the legs to get up that ascent. Just too steep, power to weight ratio not in his favour on those anytime it goes over 10%. And for Greg Van Avermaet, ultimately disappointment, but it's been, well, so far a very, very impressive Tirreno Adriatico for the man from BNC as Julian Arredondo makes his way across the line. His early attack just a little bit not enough on this occasion. Van Avermaet makes his way through to the line. He'll push all the way, and well, he's not got any teammates for company. Unusual situation, no one has hung around with him, but Greg Van Avermaet, great effort from him, and he's still got another opportunity, I suppose, on Monday if things get a bit confusing.
That's a very brave effort. You could see he tried his best. It just wasn't to be. On gradients that steep, there's not much you can do. As you touched on, it's all about power to weight. He's still ridden extremely well. Took a stage win. He'll be very, very pleased with that, but today it was just a little bit too tough. The climbs are too steep, but Van Avermaet concedes 2 minutes and 12 seconds to a fellow lowlander, and here he is, Wout Poels.
So Wout Poels, 27 years of age, as I said, his first year with Team Sky, formerly of Mega Pharma Quick Step for a season, and before that was a fixture at the Vacansoleil World Tour team. Took victory in Tour of the Basque Country last year, a couple of stages of Tour de l'Ain over the years, stage of Tour de Luxembourg. This is a very, very important addition to his Palmares. It's Wout Poels that takes the win, 14 seconds ahead of Rigoberto Urán. Joachim Rodriguez getting up for the final podium position. Viermoz, what an effort from him. AG Tour Le Mondial rider getting up for 4th, and I think they might look towards him for good results. Nocentini also well to the fore for AG Tour Le Mondial, and Adam Yates in the top 10. Wout Poels it is that takes the overall lead. Now 17 seconds advantage over Rigoberto Urán. Steve Cummings was in the group. We didn't see him, but what a great effort for MTN Quebec. Now sitting in 3rd place, Thibaut Pinot, Roman Kreuziger and the rest. So there's still plenty of riders still involved in the GC hunt. But it's Wout Poels that takes the overall lead. The great. And he displays the jersey colours, his first win in the colours of Team Sky. Surely not the last. Wout Poels, a great acquisition for the squad, already paying dividends. Been a good start to the year for Team Sky, going very well in Paris-Nice. But it's Wout Poels takes stage honours, and with it, the overall lead. Rigoberto Urán looks in great shape, doesn't he? Getting up for 2nd place, now sits 2nd overall and manages to out-drag Perito and Viermoz in a sprint of non-sprinters.
Wout left it late to attack on the climb, but that couldn't have worked out any better for you.
No, it was the perfect timing, and I was looking a little bit to the big riders like Contador and Nibali, but they had so good legs, so I thought maybe I attack on the top of the climb, and then you only have to do the downhill, so it worked pretty good.
You've got the leader's jersey now as well, so looking towards tomorrow, what do you think your prospects are up that final climb? You look on good form.
Yeah, I'm in really good shape, so I'm not really afraid for the stage of tomorrow. Looking forward in the leader jersey, and really nice.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, very relieved, delighted, excited. Well, not too, quite relaxed about it all, isn't he? And there's a bike that we are likely to see to the fore again tomorrow afternoon. The bike of today's stage winner, Wout Poels. Well, Eurosport International viewers depart to head to watch Paris-Nice. Average speed of the stage 38.5 kilometers an hour. It's pretty impressive considering all the hills they've gone up.
It certainly is. The average speed of the whole race up to this morning was actually 46.2 k's an hour, so that average will it'll still be over 40 k's an hour. Just shows how aggressively this race has been ridden. But what a display of power and timing. It was an incendiary attack just at the right time for Wout Poels. So it was a textbook move, but again, it's okay having a textbook, but you have to have the physical attributes, you have to have the patience, you have to have the cunning, you have to have the ability to execute it, and he did it to absolute perfection. But of course he still had 6 k's of a really technical, hairy descent. I bet the director sportif had his heart in his mouth. I don't know who was in the team car, whether it was Rod or who, but what a great win to Team Sky. Let's be fair, they're on an absolute roll at the moment, and Wout Poels, he looks extremely cut, he looks extremely fit. Who'd bet against him tomorrow? It's going to be very exciting.
Oh, what a great stage we had. Greg Van Avermaet in blue after his great stage victory into Arezzo yesterday. Rigoberto Urán, he's floating into our consciousness more and more over the last couple of days, isn't he? Finished well in Arezzo, finished well again this afternoon. Flag came in, took a little bit longer than usual for the break to establish itself. When it did, there were 2 Orica Green Edge riders in it. Ian Stannard not amongst the duo. It was Matt Heyman and Luke Durbridge that led over the first 2 climbs of the day. And we're out there for the bulk of the afternoon. Some good points taken by Carlos Quintero. I believe that he's gone into the lead of the mountains competition, and those descents were sketchy. The 2 riders from the breakaway were off their bikes. So 2 riders from Bardiani, and punctures aplenty, afflicting many of the overall contenders, including Alberto Contador and indeed top riders of the caliber of Fabian Cancellara et al. Paolini on bottle duty as BMC look to control things and chase down these two riders, bloodied but unbowed. And Cancellara didn't fall over. He was just doing a bit of Pilates or yoga and just getting into a Zen mode. Did a great turn for Arredondo later in the stage to try and set him up. Good day for Orica in terms of getting on telly, but Matt Hayman, well, first of all, Durbridge cracked and Matt Hayman ploughed on. A little bit of frustration from Kirienka. Should have done some of that Cancellara yoga maybe when he was getting a rather slow wheel change. Hayman almost came to a full stop on the Crispiero first time round. Nice little attack from Visconti, Scarponi and Arredondo. Moreno jogged over to them and it looked like that might be a nice move, but I think of Saxo behind weren't comfortable with the lead and with the composition of that group. Towed them back before they went up it one last time with feeling. Up the Crispiero for the final ascent of the day. Vincenzo Nibali, Alberto Contador, Quintana, all looking very comfortable indeed. A lot less comfortable for Greg van Avermaet. Superb work by AG Tuorla Mondial to try and set things up for Pozzovivo, but he didn't quite have the legs. One man that did benefited from those efforts. Wout Poels crested the summit of the Crispiero and raced clear and clean all the way through to the finish in Castelraimondo to take a famous victory. Big addition to his palmares. His first victory in the colours of Team Sky, and he now has the lead of the race overall.
Yeah, fantastic win by Wout Poels. Remember racing against him actually back in 2010 when he took a victory in a stage of the Tour of Britain. Very, very hilly finale, attacked just over the crest of a climb, then a technical descent on the run-in. So a similar modus operandi to his win in the Tour of Britain back in 2010, but he's come a long way since then, and is now the leader of Tirreno Adriatico. I wouldn't have thought many people would have put money on Wout Poels today. Perhaps, you know, rode very, very, as well as strongly. He rode Declan very, very wisely and didn't panic and launched a move just at the right time to put himself in a very strong position. And of course he's got some very strong teammates around him. We thought coming into this race with the absence of Chris Froome that Sky would perhaps suffer, but it's all changed. It makes for a very exciting next couple of days. We've still got the Queen stage to come tomorrow up the Terminillo, and then of course an individual time trial, so it's going to go down to the wire. But here's the man of the moment, Wout Poels.
The man of the moment indeed is the stage victor today, Wout Poels.
Looks a bit bewildered, doesn't he?
Yeah, like he doesn't do this too often. I tell you what, he has got an impressive Palmares. He's won a lot of bike races in his time, but just very, very relaxed. He's not getting too excited about it. Treating triumph with pretty much the same attitude as he might treat disaster. Fair play to him. Manages a smile, raises the trophy, and very shortly he'll spray the bubbly. And I wonder what he'll think now about tomorrow's stage. 4 mountain climbs, including that summit finish. 16 kilometers of climbing to the finish of Terminillo. It's a bit of an epic. 194 kilometers in total.
It's going to be tough, and this has been a very, very hard day in the saddle. But all the main GC contenders are there. We hadn't seen much of Joaquin Rodriguez, got third on the stage. Iran also there. But he'll savor this moment and hopefully be feeling fresh in the morning. Well, I certainly think that Wout Poels will be up to the task, but what will the pure climbers do? It's all about the pure climbers tomorrow, as Wout Poels has his moment with the bubbly. But will we see Contador and Quintana attack on the slopes of the final climb tomorrow? And will this man be able to respond?
Yeah, he says he's not even thinking about tomorrow, which is absolutely the correct attitude. You might as well enjoy
the
it.
moment,
You know,
yeah.
I mean, you might give him at least 10 minutes to enjoy it. Is there
often.
any chance that he can go with those guys later on?
I don't know. I mean, again, he's clearly in good form. He looks, I mean, he's a lean-looking figure anyway. You know, he weighs only 66 kilograms, looks very cut. He's in great form. But again, riding on a climb like that in the company of Alberto Contador and Nairo Quintana and even Rigoberto Urán is going to be a big ask, but who knows?
Tremendous to see Steve Cummings up there, managed to get through with the group, sitting third overall now. Great time trial performance from him, and he's survived so far and gravitating his way up towards the top of the overall standings. Thibaut Pinot's right there, well placed. Roman Kreuziger still to the fore, and there's a great card to play for Alberto Contador.
Of course, Roman Kreuziger was a podium, took third place in this race last year and does look to be in good shape as well. Always shadowing his team leader, so again a good foil. Peter Sagan still in the mix, but today or tomorrow, so it won't be a day for Peter Sagan. That hill will be one mountain too far. It'll be about the pure climbers tomorrow, and again a very, very long stage, 196 k's, and that comes the day after riding 226 k's. It's going to be a real war of attrition tomorrow.
Yeah, Kreuziger, of course, went up the road. He launched the first big attack on the final climb of the Queen Stage last year.
He did.
You know, it's a pretty obvious tactic, and there's very little you can do about it if the guys have got the right legs.
Exactly. Two really, from memory, two very, very different styles. Kreuziger hoofing a really large gear round, and behind him Alberto Contador on a lower gear out of the saddle.
Albeit he does ride a slightly bigger gear than some of the other climbers that he often ends up vying for stage honours with.
Yeah, when you look back, as you see the confirmation of the overall standings there.
Great effort from Steve Cummings of MTA in Quebec, and now 26 seconds in arrears. It would be an impressive performance if Steve Cummings was able to get up the Terminillo with the group tomorrow.
Steve Cummings can climb really well. I mean, you don't win the Tour de Mediterranean and races like that without being able to climb. But tomorrow is different. This was a short, relatively, well, it was a short, sharp climb, only 3 kilometres in length. But when you have a climb of 15 kilometres with 10, 12% gradients, you need a different sort of physiology. It's down to the pure climbers. Again, I'd love to see Steve Cummings stay up there, but it's going to be a big ask for him tomorrow.
Yeah, we're on at 2 o'clock tomorrow on British Eurosport 2, so please do join us for that. And of course, Paris-Nice. It's a feast of cycling on the home of cycling. Let's have a look at the parcours for tomorrow's stage. As I say, 4 mountain climbs in total, 4 categorised ascents with plenty of points on offer. For those that are still involved in the mountains competition, Carlos Quintero has taken the lead. And no doubt himself and Danilo Wiss will be keen to get into the early break because there are a few mountain ascents early on. 15 points on offer for the first to the top of the final climb. But more importantly, 10 seconds on offer for overall time, plus whatever you've managed to take. That Terminillo climb is a real doozy. You don't have to go into the Alps and the Dolomites to get the big ascents. 16 kilometers in total. There is an indication just what a leg breaker it is for them tomorrow.
A couple of hors d'oeuvres as well. The Passo Selegri and the Arete also, just to numb the legs. So a real big, tough day.
Peter Sagan hangs on to the points lead, and another red jersey on offer for him, but not able to get involved in contention for the stage honours this afternoon. So Peter Sagan in red, and it's now Wout Poels in blue to go with his stage win. Myself and Matt are back tomorrow. Please do join us then, but for now, it's goodbye.